Section: Introduction. In this section, we discuss instruction fine-tuning, which aims to align the outputs of foundation models with user intentions by training them on human annotated data that reflects desired behaviors. We define our dataset as pairs of input instructions and their corresponding desired outputs. Our goal is to minimize a specific loss function that measures how well the model predicts the desired output based on the input. Traditional methods for instruction tuning require a lot of labeled data, which can be costly and time-consuming to gather. To address this, we explore using synthetic data generated through techniques like data augmentation and back translation, which can provide a more efficient alternative. Next, we look at data attribution methods, particularly the influence function, which helps us understand how individual training points affect the model's predictions. The influence of a training point on the model's parameters can be calculated using the loss function and its gradient. However, calculating the full Hessian matrix in deep neural networks is challenging. Recent advancements have made it possible to apply the influence function to large language models more effectively. We then formulate our problem. Given a user input, we want to generate a diverse set of high-quality responses from a foundation model. One way to achieve this is by sampling multiple times from the model using temperature sampling. However, this can compromise quality for diversity. An alternative is to train several model adaptations on different data subsets, allowing us to generate diverse yet high-quality responses. Although training multiple adaptations has been seen as resource-intensive, the rise of instruction tuning has made it more practical, especially during the post-training phase. As we accumulate more synthetic data, the benefits of fine-tuning a single model on the entire dataset decrease. We find that the accuracy after fine-tuning on the full dataset is similar to using only a fraction of it. This insight leads us to propose the Synthesize, Partition, then Adapt, SPA framework, which utilizes synthetic datasets, data partitioning, and efficient fine-tuning methods to create multiple model adaptations. By sampling from these adaptations, SPA enhances the generation of diverse and high-quality responses, ultimately improving the user experience. Section Summary. In this section, we discuss instruction fine-tuning, which enhances model alignment with user intentions by training on human annotated data, while also exploring the use of synthetic data to alleviate the challenges of collecting large labeled datasets. We introduce the Synthesize, Partition, then Adapt, SPA framework, which utilizes synthetic datasets and efficient fine-tuning to generate diverse and high-quality responses from multiple model adaptations. Section: Partitioning synthetic data and training adaptations. In this section, we present the technical details of our proposed SPA framework for training multiple adaptations. We utilize an existing synthetic dataset, which consists of pairs of input and output data, to focus on the effectiveness of our partition then adapt steps in generating diverse samples. This also showcases the flexibility of our framework to work with various synthetic datasets, as illustrated in the accompanying figure. Our approach involves three main steps. First, we compute data attribution scores for the synthetic data points. Second, we partition the synthetic dataset based on these scores. And third, we train multiple adaptations of a foundation model using efficient fine-tuning techniques. To compute data attribution scores, we start with a pre-trained foundation model and aim to train a set of adaptations that focus on specific data subsets with similar model behaviors. We use data attribution methods to assess the importance of each training point for the model's predictions. While we demonstrate the use of influence functions, our framework can also incorporate other methods like lexical overlap or track. Initially, we fine-tune the pre-trained model on the synthetic dataset to optimize its parameters, minimizing a loss function that measures prediction errors. After fine-tuning, we select a set of test queries that require various expertise to solve. For each test query, we calculate the influence score of each synthetic data point. To do this efficiently, we apply a stochastic estimation method that approximates complex calculations, making it feasible even with large models. Once we have the data attribution scores, we create an influence matrix that captures the scores for each synthetic data point relative to the test points. We then partition the synthetic dataset into subsets using a clustering algorithm, ensuring that each subset contains data points with similar impacts on the model's predictions. For simplicity, we use a ranking heuristic for this partitioning, although our framework is adaptable to different clustering methods. The specifics of this heuristic will be detailed in the experimental section. Section Summary. In this section, we present our SPA framework for training multiple adaptations using a synthetic dataset, focusing on the steps of computing data attribution scores, partitioning the dataset, and training model adaptations. We utilize a clustering algorithm to create disjoint subsets of data points based on their influence scores, ensuring that each subset contributes similarly to the model's predictions. Section: Training multiple adaptations with. In this section, we describe our approach to training multiple adaptations of a foundation model. After dividing the synthetic dataset into k subsets, we train a foundation model for each subset using efficient fine-tuning methods. We adjust the pre-trained model's parameters by learning smaller matrices for each weight matrix in the model. The adapted weight for each model is calculated by adding the product of these smaller matrices to the original weight. During this process, we only update the smaller matrices while keeping the original weights unchanged, which reduces the number of parameters we need to train. This allows us to train several adaptations without requiring extensive computational resources. For each model adaptation, our goal is to minimize the error between the actual outputs and the model's predictions based on the training data. By training multiple adaptations, we can effectively tailor the pre-trained model to different subsets of the synthetic data, each focusing on unique aspects, resulting in a variety of specialized models that capture different knowledge. During inference, when we receive user input, we aim to generate a diverse range of responses by randomly selecting one of the trained adaptations. This random selection helps us produce varied outputs while maintaining quality. We can enhance this diversity further by using different sampling techniques. By repeating the random selection process, we can provide users with multiple alternative responses that reflect different perspectives, improving their experience. Our method ensures that the quality of responses remains high, even when using simpler sampling methods. Next, we outline our experimental setup and results to evaluate the effectiveness of our proposed framework in enhancing the diversity of outputs from the foundation model. We conduct experiments on code generation tasks, such as human eval and MBPP, as well as various natural language understanding tasks. For our code generation experiments, we use Code LLAMA7B as our base model, which is specifically designed for code tasks and pre-trained on a large dataset of code and natural language. Our synthetic dataset consists of 75,000 question-answer pairs generated by GPT 3.5 Turbo. In the natural language understanding domain, we utilize Llama 213B, a robust model trained on diverse web-scale data. Our synthetic dataset here is Platypus, which includes around 25,000 question-answer pairs aimed at enhancing STEM and logic knowledge. We also compare two methods for calculating data attribution scores: influence function and lexical overlap. For the influence method, we create 12 examples that represent a broad range of knowledge for each domain and calculate their influence scores against the training examples. We then select the top test queries with the most varied influence scores to ensure diverse impacts on the dataset. For the lexical overlap method, we compute a score based on the overlap between training examples and our test queries. While we focus on the influence function in our work, we recognize that exploring other methods like BM25 could be valuable for future research. More details can be found in the appendix. Section Summary. In this section, we describe our approach to training multiple adaptations of a foundation model by fine-tuning low-rank matrices for each data subset, which allows us to efficiently create specialized models while keeping the pre-trained weights fixed. We also outline our inference strategy that generates diverse responses by randomly sampling from these adaptations, ensuring high-quality outputs that reflect different perspectives. Section: Partitioning the synthetic datasets. In this section, we partition the synthetic datasets to train multiple adaptations of our foundation model. We begin by setting the hyperparameter k, which indicates the number of adaptations we will create. For both code generation and natural language understanding, we choose k to be 8. For each data point in our synthetic dataset, we identify the test queries that have the most influence. Specifically, for each synthetic data point, we assign it to the subset that corresponds to the test point with the highest influence score. This process divides the OS instruct dataset and the platypus dataset into k groups, each linked to a specific test example that significantly impacts the data points in that group. With our partitioned synthetic dataset, we proceed to train k-model adaptations, focusing on the specific coding knowledge associated with each test point. To evaluate the diversity of our adaptations, we use two metrics. First, we calculate the average KL divergence, which measures how different the probability distributions of responses from two model adaptations are. A higher average KL divergence indicates greater diversity among the adaptations. Second, we assess sample diversity by measuring the uniqueness of individual responses. We compute a diversity score based on the proportion of unique samples among k randomly generated samples for each problem. We also establish two baselines for comparison, one where a single adaptation is trained on the entire synthetic dataset, and another where multiple adaptations are trained on randomly partitioned subsets of the dataset. In the code generation domain, we test our methodology on two benchmarks, human eval and MBPP. Human eval includes 164 programming problems with test cases, while MBPP has 399 problems sourced from online materials. We evaluate the ability to generate functionally correct code using the pass@1 and pass@5 metrics, which measure the percentage of problems for which at least one of the generated samples passes all test cases. We find that the pass@5 metric correlates strongly with sample diversity. Our results show that our SPA framework outperforms the baselines in terms of diversity metrics. The SPA method using the influence function achieves the highest diversity scores on both benchmarks, indicating that our generated samples are unique and varied. Additionally, it also yields the highest average KL divergence, demonstrating greater diversity at the distributional level. While the random partitioning and lexical overlap methods improve diversity compared to the single adaptation baseline, they do not match the effectiveness of the influence function. Moreover, the pass@5 scores indicate that our generated samples not only exhibit high diversity but also maintain quality. Overall, our findings highlight the effectiveness of the SPA framework in generating diverse and accurate code solutions, even when employing greedy decoding. We also note that increasing the number of adaptations beyond 8 did not enhance diversity. Section Summary. In this section, we partition synthetic datasets into 8 groups based on influence scores to train multiple model adaptations for code generation and natural language understanding. Our evaluation shows that using influence functions enhances the diversity and quality of generated samples, achieving the highest diversity scores and pass rates on benchmark tasks compared to other methods. Section: Impact of temperature. In this section, we examine the effect of temperature on various performance metrics, including pass@1, pass@5, and diversity score, using different methods on the human eval benchmark. Our first plot indicates that all methods, such as single, random, lexical, and influence, show similar trends in pass@1 performance. They reach their highest accuracy of about 50.2% when the temperature is 0, but this drops to around 46.5% as the temperature rises to 0.5. Conversely, both pass@5 and diversity score improve with increasing temperature, which is expected since higher temperatures promote more diverse outputs. Notably, the SPA method using the influence function consistently outperforms the other methods across all temperature settings, although the performance gap narrows as temperature increases. Still, influence maintains its lead at a temperature of 0.5. Next, We assess the effectiveness of SPA in natural language understanding by evaluating its performance on various tasks, including Big Bench Hard, GPQA, MMLU, and Wino Grande. For tasks with multiple choice questions, we encourage the model to continue generating text after providing an answer to enhance sample diversity. Our findings show that SPA with the influence function consistently achieves higher diversity scores and average KL divergence compared to lexical overlap and random adaptations across all tasks. Interestingly, random adaptations perform better than lexical overlap on the GPQA task, indicating that the effectiveness of these methods can vary by task. The diversity scores and average KL divergence differ across tasks, reflecting their unique complexities. For instance, MMLU, which encompasses a broad range of subjects, tends to yield higher average KL divergence. We also observe that a larger difference in average KL divergence does not always correspond to a significantly greater difference in diversity scores. This suggests that while average KL divergence measures the dissimilarity of generated sample distributions, it may not directly indicate the actual diversity of the samples. Nevertheless, the consistent improvements from SPA with the influence function demonstrate its robustness and adaptability to various challenges in natural language understanding. In the related work, we note that sampling-based methods have been extensively studied for generating diverse text from language models. Temperature sampling is one of the most common techniques. Previous research has explored how temperature affects model sampling and the trade-off between diversity and quality. Higher temperatures yield more diverse but potentially less coherent samples, while lower temperatures result in more conservative outputs. Human intervention can help correct errors when using high temperatures. Dynamic temperature strategies have also been investigated during model training and inference. In addition to temperature adjustments, methods like top K and top P sampling are frequently used to limit the sampling space or dynamically adjust the number of tokens considered at each step. Other studies have focused on framing the quality-diversity trade-off as a search or reinforcement learning problem.